12 of the best icebreaker questions for teams that also happen to be 12 of my favorite questions, and I think a lot about questions. I work with groups a lot about questions. I don't love fluff. Let's get into it. I'm going to share with you a best practice for icebreaker questions, which is to choose categories of questions. And so in particular in this video, the 12 questions I'm going to walk you through are going to fall into these three buckets. I would actually say that these three buckets or these three categories serve as a best practice for icebreaker questions in general. And so questions that show up in green tend to be fun and light. Questions that will show up in blue go a little bit deeper. And questions that are purple encourage some level of self-reflection. So often they take a little bit of a pause to respond to. And I specifically include that bucket because the word icebreaker is a bit of an extroverted word. Introverts hear that and think, I'm going to be tired at the end of the day. And so inserting purple questions, and one of the activities that I'll suggest to you in this, really introvert friendly. Extrovert friendly too, but really friendly for introverts. And I think that's really important because when you're doing an icebreaker, half of your population is probably a little bit more introverted. And so being really mindful of the questions you choose. So feel free as we go along to take screenshots of the questions as they show up, or drop in the link below and you can get a free printable version of these cards to use in your own context. Now, three questions that helped me discover the power behind these 12. I was giving a keynote at this big, I'll leave the company anonymous, at this big company, and I got up and I asked right off the bat, how many of you really love small talk, however you define it? Chit chat, filling space with chit chat. And in an audience of about 800 people, 2 people raised their hands. The second question that I asked was, how many of you really love conversations that matter, that skip past the small talk? And just about every hand in the room went up. And here's the kicker, and this was, the reason I'm sharing these three questions is it's a phenomenal framing, I believe, for any icebreaker question. The third question that I asked was, and how many of you we were at this event or this conference, so how many of you in the last 48 hours have had at least 5 conversations that you would categorize as small talk? And almost every single hand in the room went up, which is crazy to me because, and served as a really powerful framing before we actually did an exercise, this question swap exercise using the 12 questions that I'm going to lay out for you. It was a really powerful framing because I was able to reflect to the group like, yo, in the last 48 hours, we're talking with a person, small talk, like filling time with idle chit chat, and you weren't really loving it, and they weren't really loving it based on the data we just collected in the room, and then you went and did it 4 more times. It's like, what? It's kind of crazy. And so what we're gonna do in the question swap exercise that we're gonna dive into, in these 12 questions that I'm gonna unpack, allow us to comfortably slide around that small talk. Enough story time. Let's start rolling with green questions. What is the strangest thing you used to believe as a child? Really cool question to just unpack a little bit about someone's story, right? When somebody answers that question, you learn a whole bunch more about how they grew up, which may inform a little bit of who they are today. And so inviting a little bit of story from the past into the present. Question number 2. What is one of your favorite topics of conversation? This is a really good one, especially virtually, to ask right at the beginning of a gathering, almost as an unofficial start. What is one of your favorite topics of conversation? Have people type their answer into the chat and then say, cool, the theme of what you just shared is that you love talking about family or pets or food or whatever it is. And so as some connection before content, we're gonna split off into groups, and the question is, and then you just actually create a question that's based in how they answered that question. So you see how asking what is one of your favorite topics of conversation can actually lead to an infinite amount of personalized icebreakers that your group has just told you they actually want to talk about, which means bonus points, you're not pushing them or forcing anybody or cajoling anybody to talk about something. Third one, what is something that amazes you? I love this question because it takes mundanity, which is typically you're doing an icebreaker in a context that's like, you're at a work meeting, or you're beginning a semester of classes, or like it's not like you're not typically doing an icebreaker at a theme park. And so it's, you're in a relatively regular setting. And so the question, what is something that amazes you, takes everything that gives us wonder in the world and that we love to talk about, takes it from outside that context and pulls it in to our current context. And that's really cool, because what you're doing with that question is actually opening 10 doors to 10 different worlds and inviting those worlds to all hop into here. It's almost a form of like conversational teleportation, which is a concept I haven't actually talked about until I just said that in this video. So that's kind of cool. Maybe write that one down. Future video, conversation teleportation. This is a good chance to subscribe to the channel because I post videos hyper regularly to help leaders and educators make connection and engagement easy. Fourth green question, what made you smile in the last 2 weeks? The piece that I love about this question that you can steal and then actually utilize to create your own questions is it creates time-boundness. So you'll notice I'm sourcing these questions from a deck of cards called We Connect cards, and the cards are themed blue, purple, and green. There you go. And one of the things that we learned as we were developing this question set is that when you ask superlatives, so what is your best memory? What is your favorite place in the world? It's a really hard question to answer. It's not like a good, quick icebreaker sort of question, because like, I don't know, I've been alive for 50 years. How do I choose the best memory? As opposed to saying, what is one of the best? Or in this case, what made you smile in the last 2 weeks? In the last 2 weeks allows people to just say, shoo. So what's not what is the thing that made you smile most, but what made you smile in the last 2 weeks? Brains are really good at recounting memories from the recent past. Brains are debatably good about recalling memories from way long ago, especially if it's like on the spot in a question in an icebreaker sort of context. So we'll put all 4 of those questions up on the screen again so you can screenshot them if you want to. Switching gears from green questions, we're gonna go a little bit deeper. We're gonna go like, whew, deep questions. These are questions that make you think a little bit more than you typically would. They're questions that we really love talking about with people that we have some psychological safety that we're comfortable with. However, it's really cool because when you ask these questions, it actually serves as this shielded discussion that inserts this little wall between you and me and says, oh, you can share this because the card allowed you to, or the question allowed you to, not because you were taking all of the social risk in the moment. All right, for blue questions, I'm gonna go through them quickly and then we'll review what I love about them at the end. How did you learn your most important lesson in life? What would you do differently if nobody would judge you? If you could give one piece of advice to a large group of people, what would it be? And last, what is one thing you want to accomplish in your lifetime? Okay, so starting with that last one, you hear the phrase, what is one thing you want to accomplish in your lifetime? It doesn't say what's your #1 goal or what are the top 3 items on your bucket list. Just what is one? Because often to break the ice, you just need one little piece of information, and that little piece of information is a doorway that opens up to 10 other doorways, and each of those doorways opens up to 10 other doorways, which is why in some of my other videos I talk about this idea that conversation is exponential, right? One little question is a key that unlocks an infinite amount, well, not an infinite amount, a few decades worth of life experience. The first question, how did you learn your most important lesson in life? I realize that that's a superlative. How did you learn your most important lesson in life? And yet, I do like that being a superlative because, and I found it to be useful for people, because oftentimes it brings out a key or pivotal moment in someone's developmental journey. And so keeping that as superlative works in that context. The second one, what would you do differently if nobody would judge you? Google found that the #1 characteristic of high-performing teams at Google was the degree of psychological safety that exists in that team. And so a question like, what would you do if you knew nobody would judge you, allows people the choice, and that's a really important feature of questions, allows people the choice to reveal a little part of who they are in the world and to share that with you. And in this case, what would you do differently if nobody would judge you? It's saying, if you felt totally psychologically safe, what might you do differently? And when people answer that question in a group context or an organizational context, it gives you some ideas about how to actually create space for people to do that. So if everybody says they would wear sweatpants to work, maybe you build into your culture a day where everybody can wear sweatpants to work, or is encouraged to wear sweatpants to work and to show up casual, or you just go back to 2020 and you can all wear sweatpants to work every day. Purple questions, encouraging some level of self-reflection. For this one, the activity that I would actually do for these questions is I call me to we. And the idea is you actually give the group the question, then give them a set amount of time to go off, journal, think about it, take a walk and ponder their answer, and then come back to the group to share their responses. You could have them share in a large group or into small groups depending on your group size. But the questions that could be really great for this kind of walk and ponder or journal first with myself, me, and then bring answers to the group we, which I really love, kind of rooted in Susan Cain's work, Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Talks about, how Buddha and Gandhi and Rosa Parks and these people who were not very gregarious, charismatic people made a massive difference in the world, in part because they took time to reflect before they just started blabbing and gabbing. And so the 4 questions that I would consider using are, what is something that you recently discovered that you're excited about? That one, from experience, yields awesome answers, but requires people some time to think. What is something you know really well? I love this question. It puts people in the position of expert, if just for a moment, to say, hey, I really know this really well. And so whether you're introverted or extroverted, it's a little bit easier to talk from the place of things you know really well, as opposed to talking from a place that's a little bit outside your realm of knowledge. 3, what are your hopes for what the future holds for you? This is lovely to just kind of teleport into the future a little bit. 4, what is one of the most adventurous things you've ever done? You hear that one more time. So what is one of the most adventurous things you've ever done? Whew. It took about, 12 minutes-ish to get 12 questions out, but hopefully you've got a whole bunch of depth to help facilitate clear questions. Download the free question set below. I'm Chad Littlefield. Lovely hanging out in cyberspace with you. Have an awesome day.